Daggerfall. A way less friendly game than Morrowind, than Oblivion, than probably any game you've played. Yet it is one I highly recommend to try. But I'm going to give a quick guide on how to get started on making a character, on downloading Daggerfall Unity, and just the basics of playing the game. So first, you have to download and install Daggerfall Unity. Literally just Google Daggerfall Unity, follow the instructions. Here, I'll show you. First, install it on Steam. It is free. Step 2, Google Daggerfall Unity and click on it. Step 3, click on the Using Steam link. Step 4, right here where it says Releases, click on that. Next, scroll down to Assets and click on the one that applies to you, probably Windows 64-bit. You open it up and you double click on daggerfallunity.exe. It will ask you to create a path. Create this path. That's it. You just click on these buttons. They're right there if you're doing this through Steam. Press OK, set your resolution, set the quality to fantastic, and now you can mess with the settings. There's advanced and stuff, and you can create a shortcut to your desktop. Running it from your desktop will open it straight to here. I like to always show this window in case I want to change any settings. There's lots of different settings you can change. I would recommend clicking advanced and doing smaller dungeons. That one makes a big difference. Really, any of these you can mess with. At the top here, we have interface. I didn't really mess with any of these, but some things like an arrow counter make sense. It seems like it would be good. Enhancements, I turned on some of these that started out off. For example, allow magic item repairs, instant repair services, and selecting guild quests. It just sounds like the game would be more fun with those things on, and I'm not really a hardcore player, so I'm okay with making the game a little bit easier on myself. For video, obviously, this is your preference, field of view, and other things like that, and you can set it however you want. All right, last, we got to start the game and make our character, and really the focus of this is not to min-max and not to be really powerful. In fact, I'm actually going to make a fairly weak character that doesn't have very many advantages, but it's going to be a fun character that can get through the first dungeon and is capable of completing the game. The first thing you choose when making a character is which race you want to be, and obviously we're going to be the cat lady because they get plus 30 to climbing checks, and the bonuses for races aren't that powerful in Daggerfall. To choose them, you just pick elsewhere, and you say yes and female. After you pick your race, always choose this top option because then it allows you to pick a custom class, which I think is very fun in this. Now, our class is going to be Nico, probably. The first thing I do is bump this max hit points up per level. Because I'm a noob, I always set it to 30. And some dump stats. I think willpower, agility, and luck are not very good, so I like to reduce them. In regular Daggerfall, personality is also a dump stat, but in Unity, apparently you want to keep it at 40, so I'm going to keep it at 40. Strength, intelligence, endurance, and speed are all very useful, so we're going to put points into all of them. And they're pretty much useful for 90% of builds. Next, we pick our skills. Because I'm not very good at this game, for people like me, you always want to start with a weapon skill as your primary skill. So I'm going to pick long blade as my primary skill because I'm going to use a long blade to kill my enemies. I'm also going to pick destruction, which apparently is not the best primary skill choice, but I don't care. I'm just going to pick it anyway because, like I said, I'm just not good at the game. There is some reasons why you shouldn't pick destruction, or you should put it as a major skill. Again, I'm just not that worried about min-maxing, and destruction's always fun. I've seen people pick running here because it levels quickly. I think that's very reasonable. If you want to gain levels, that's got a lot of use. You could pick mysticism because that's easy to level up. Critical strike if you want to be a more physical fighting character. Dodging if you're going to get a lot of combat because there's a lot of checks for it. It should level up quickly. For this character, I will pick critical strike. Major skills, I like to do some magic, and also if I have an off weapon. So for example, maybe I want to be able to use short blades. In case I start with that ebony dagger from the background. Alteration is useful, and mysticism is really cool. Minor skills, I already have plus 30 to climbing. I don't think I need to pick it. Dodging is useful. All magic skills are useful. You definitely want running. And I'll have mercantile. I'll plan to use alteration or just breaking open locks if I need to. So these are my skills. This is my build. These ones aren't as important. Honestly, just pick something that you like. Just make sure you have a weapon skill as a primary skill so you can kill the first rat at the beginning of the game. Special advantages, there's a lot of options here. These numbers are how much they will move up or down your dagger. I always pick 3 times in for increased magery, and that is 10 advantage points. And I pick expertise in whatever my primary skill is. So for this one, it will be long blade. That's plus 2, so plus 12. Spell absorption is really good. If you want that plus 14, I think it is totally worth it to pick spell absorption here. Just know if you do pick spell absorption, it's a 100% chance to absorb all spells. But if you don't have an empty magicka pool, you won't be able to absorb the spell. So it's really good if you're spamming your spells, you're keeping your magicka low, and then enemies hit you, it will increase your magicka, regen that magicka. But if you're sitting at full magicka, you'll just melt and die, and it won't do anything for you. Also know that bonus to hit is actually bonus damage, and if you want to play a pure melee build, it's really good and you want to pick bonus to hit. I'm not picking a melee build, so I'm doing my 3 times int, my expertise in Longblade, and as a Khajiit, we're going to be resistant to fire. Why not? Disadvantages are pretty interesting. You want ones that are more negative to give you back those dagger points, we'll call them. I will have low tolerance to frost. Frost attacks shouldn't just annihilate me. With low tolerance, I will take more damage from them. Forbidden material does have some decent points, but just know you are giving up that material for the entire game. So if I pick steel, for example, which you can do, that will make the beginning of the game much more difficult because you won't be able to use any steel items. After you are past the point where you need steel items, then you will be a lot more powerful. And so I'm going to pick that just for those 10 dagger points, but just know that steel has a 10% higher chance to hit than iron. Where early game, that could be bringing you from 38% chance to hit to 48% chance to hit, which is a pretty big difference, and you will notice that. So it is nice to have steel, and a lot of your early game armor will be steel, but I'm doing it anyway because I'm not min-maxing, and this kitty is not going to wear steel armor. I'm also not going to wear bucklers because those are lame, and I'm not going to use blunt weapons because blunt isn't part of my skills. I'm either going to be using a long or a short blade. In fact, if I wanted to, I could say, yeah, I'm also not going to use an axe. Why not? I am not going to say I can't use a missile weapon or hand-to-hand because maybe I'll want to play around with those. For reputations, I think scholars really like cat girls and the nobility aren't as fond of them. For this one, always choose the bottom one. Choose your character's career path by answering 12 important questions. This one will increase whatever skill you pick. However, you should know that your maximum level is based on keeping your primary skills low. If you get them higher, that will reduce your maximum level because your level is determined, actually, it's based on your starting sum of these 6 skills. These are the only 6 skills that can increase your level. There are your 3 primary skills, your 2 highest major skills, and your 1 highest minor skill. And if those start higher, well, that will make it more difficult to increase your levels because of the way the leveling system works. Kind of like in Oblivion, if you started with 70 all major skills, you could only gain 30 more in those skills, so you would have less opportunity to get a maximum level in Oblivion. Now, Daggerfall is a little different because there's not 7 major skills. It's based on these 6 skills and increasing them. It's also not a bad idea to go to Daggerfall background if you want to get information about these questions. For example, if it says, what thieving skill have you been studying the longest? You can hit Control F and actually just find that one pretty quickly. This one's kind of obvious. It's gaining you 6 into whatever skill you choose. I know that I picked Critical Strike as my primary skill, so I'm not going to pick Critical Striking. But you might try and pick something that you think might benefit you, like backstabbing. Why not? What school of magic have you been studying the longest? Again, destruction is my primary skill, so I'm not going to pick that one. I think mysticism has a lot of uses. Well, they all have a lot of uses, so you can pick any. What is your expertise in combat? These ones can give you an item. Short blade might be a good idea because it's not a primary skill, but it would be higher, and I could start with some iron gauntlets. If it considers me a thief, I might start with a silver dagger, but I don't believe it will because I picked a custom class, but sometimes it's a little weird with that. So I'll say short-bladed weapons. For my nickname, I like to pick Quicksilver because you run faster, but any of these are fine. These just give you +6 to whatever skill. Obviously, I want to talk to Daedra and not nymphs. Gross. As you grew older, you received additional magical training, and do not say the School of Destruction because that's your primary skill. We'll say Thaumaturgy. In between formal study, I think I always say learning economics because these ones hurt your reputation with certain people, and I never pick Mercantile as a primary skill. This one won't matter. Of the disagreeable types you have the most personal hatred for, cat girls probably don't like priests. What motivates you? This gives you gold. Fame gives you reputation with scholars. And the underworld. Knowledge gives you a book, which isn't very useful. Commoners can be useful because you need to ask commoners for directions, to be honest. So I would think it'd be very reasonable to pick commoners because that way they will just be more likely to tell you where things are. I want to join the Mages Guild very early. I'm going to try Fame this time because I think scholars will help me join the Mages Guild or help me do the Mages Guild. What god do you worship? These give you +5 to those temples, and none is with scholars. None of these are super useful. My mother gave me, sure, a cuirass for armor. These gives you weakness to magic, weakness to poison, weakness to disease. This gives me a reduction to fatigue, which I've heard is bad, but I've never actually experienced it. So I'm going to say staying awake and alert. 4 of the options are an ebony dagger. if you ever see that one, I highly recommend it. Maybe if it's with this one and you see an elven flail, you could pick that instead. The materials of weapons is really powerful, and that's because of this 2-hit modifier. So if you're starting with iron, you start with a minus 10% chance to hit. And it isn't until you get to elven that it goes up to plus 10. Ebony is plus 40. So that difference chance to hit here, well, if I'm using an iron weapon, I might have a 37% chance to hit this rat. But if I'm using an ebony dagger, even if I only have 5 weapon skill, that still goes up to 58%. And if I'm using it as maybe a major skill and I have 20% short blade, I can go up to a very high percent chance to hit a rat. And so that very first dungeon will be useful, and it will sell for a decent amount too, because ebony's up. Ebony is an expensive material. It doesn't weigh very much, and it's got plus 4 damage as well, so it'll actually do pretty significant damage. If you are able to take that ebony dagger, I would always take it. Elven's decent too, because plus 10 chance to hit is usually enough, even if you only get to elven. But getting that ebony one is just really powerful, even if it's not a skill that you're very good with. And that's it. Name yourself. Choose what you look like. And here we have the re-rolling system. So you want to get this die higher. I try to get to at least 10. You can click it as much as you want, though. And most things have a cutoff point of zeros. Strength gives you plus 1 damage for every 5, so getting to 75 is useful. But to get plus 1 more hit from agility or luck, I would need to get to either 50 or 30, so I'd put the 5 into agility. Plus 1 personality is when the bonus will change. Think of it as Dungeons and Dragons, where they have those specific cutoff points, those break points. 10 and 11 dexterity are very similar, but at 12, your modifier goes to plus 1. All right, I like these numbers. These seem pretty good. Let's say okay. Now you get plus 6 to your skills. I like to always put them into long blade or whatever my primary weapon skill is, so I can actually hit my enemies. For my major skills, I like to put it in whatever my major skill is lowest, because remember, if you put in your highest major skill, that reduces your maximum level, so don't do that. And same with minor skill. Just don't ever put it in your highest minor skill. I will put this into dodging, because that's pretty low, and dodging is pretty worthwhile. Always say very high for reflexes, and you're good to go. Watch the awesome cutscene, and now you have started the game. You are in the middle of a cavern, you're shipwrecked, you're on an emperor's quest, and you have to get free. Here, where it says, do you want to use the tutorial? Say yes. I'm going to say no for the purpose of this video. And actually immediately hit escape and controls and mess with your controls for a while. Make sure you know what you're capable of doing. Study these for a bit. Make sure you know how to cast a spell. You know how to recast a spell. These are not the default buttons. I've already changed them. Make them what you like. Status is I. My character sheet is tab. I don't know what your character sheet will be. Save the game early and often. Go to your inventory. Equip your stuff. As you noticed, I prohibited myself from using steel, so I cannot use this weapon, but I do have an iron longsword, and I will get past that steel weakness. There's always a first rat right in this first room, and I should be just fine killing him because I actually have a decent longblade skill. You also want to make sure to rest frequently, because there are limits to when your skills increase. They only increase when you rest. Essentially, any time that you rest, loiter, or fast travel, your skill increases that you have gained will happen, and you can only gain one of those increases per 6 hours. I use my long blade enough, I've gained a skill, I will rest, my long blade will go up, but it cannot happen again for another 6 hours. Time passes at 12 times speed, so 6 hours is actually 30 minutes of real lifetime of actually you playing the game, so it'll take a while. So I recommend that you frequently are waiting to heal, and you are waiting and loitering around to make sure that your skills are actually increasing and you're not just wasting your time. There's always an imp in here as well in the first place. This is where my destruction skill comes in handy. I like to be able to kill all the enemies I fight, but if it doesn't work, you'll either have to run or load your save. After you've killed the imp, make sure you save it. And now you are ready to play. You can kill every enemy that you see with either your magic spells or your weapon. Just make sure in between each enemy, right now you're not in a rush, you can heal. If you think you've gained a level into a skill, but it didn't go up, you can always wait for a while and type in 5, and some time will pass, and it could lead to a skill increase. It is reasonable to save after every character you kill, because it does take a long time to get powerful enough where you're not dying all the time. You're just going to die a lot, and that's okay. If you can't rest, you can always run backwards and then rest. If you get anything that is elven or above, always equip that. And that is because of this modifier here. So Iron gives you a minus 10% chance to hit, where Elven gives you a plus 10% chance to hit. So if we're looking at our chance to hit, now there's actually quite a bit that goes into it, but first it starts with your skill level. And so let's say I'm starting with 34 like that character, and then it looks at your material. At Iron, that minus 10 chance to hit is just a straight minus 10 to the end of your formula. Your agility difference, well, Rat has 80 agility. My character's agility was 30. That's a 50 difference, so it's a minus 5%. You notice that's not a very big difference for how big that difference in agility is. In fact, even if I only had 10 agility, my chance to hit goes down 2%. It's not a big deal. Luck difference is about the same. Even if I only had 20 luck, it would be a minus 3% chance to hit. Expertise, because I have expertise in Longblade, it gives me a 1% chance per my level to hit. So when I get to level 2, that would become 2%. Level 3 becomes 3%. It just goes up and up and up. The way AC works is it actually works a lot like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and THAC0 or THAC0, whoever knows how to pronounce it. 2-hit armor class 0. It's just multiplied by 5 because it's being used on a D100 system instead of a D20 system. In Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, THAC0 was just a number. A level 1 character would have 20 THAC0. As you gain levels, your THAC0 went down, which means you needed a lower number to hit your enemies. And your enemy AC started at 10 as a really high and weak enemy, and it went down as those enemies got harder. So for example, if you're a level 2 fighter with 19 THAC0, and your enemy has negative 2 AC, well, you need to roll a 21 to hit them on a D20, so you'll never hit them. So for example, the Tarask or Taraski, however you pronounce this monster, it's been in all Dungeons and Dragons, and this is what it was in AD&D, and you see its THAC0 was negative 5, so it didn't need a very high roll to hit any enemy. Even if you had negative 5 AC, it would still always hit you, no matter what. And so you're level 2, you have 19 THAC0, and he has negative 3 AC. And what that means is you need a 22 or higher to hit him. So you actually need to be a warrior with 17 or lower THAC0. That is a 4th level warrior with no bonuses from anything from any of their powers or magical weapons. And so it wasn't until you get to very high levels that it was even feasible to hit enemies with negative armor class. And it's the same in Daggerfall. Enemies with negative armor class are much harder to hit. So this rat has 6 armor class. It's not that hard to hit. The ancient liches have negative 12. I would never ever hit them. Though the lowest, I think the lowest chance to hit is 3%. So I would technically hit them sometimes. As for going from Iron to Elven, well, Elven has a plus 10% chance to hit. So going from Iron to Elven is a 20% swing. That is the same difference as going from 0 luck and 0 agility to 100 luck and 100 agility, a plus 20 swing. It's massive. That's 200 attributes in just getting a slightly better material. So if you find something that's Elven, I highly recommend using it. That's going to wrap up my part 1 guide about how to get out of the first dungeon. Next, we're going to talk about how to find certain guilds and other locations by talking to people and getting to mark it on your map, which makes it a lot easier to find in this massive city. For example, a peasant gave me the location of the Mages Guild, so now I know I just need to go south and I don't need to walk around clicking on every single building, reading that it is just a residence. As long as you pick some magic skills as primary and major skills, you'll be just fine to join the guild, and as an apprentice, you unlock the Spellmaker and training, which is going to be very, very useful. I don't want to go through all the details now because we don't need a 2-hour-long video, but yes, you're going to want to join the Mages Guild. And good luck getting out of the first dungeon in Daggerfall. All right, that's all I got.